Whoop-de doodle.
What? Yeah, sorry about the session tomorrow. I've got a meeting all morning for the Open Pace group, which is some colleges in the Northeast, primarily in the Northeast, doing open source stuff, and they're talking about trying to make containers of different teaching modules, including Git and project management and things like that. So I'm there all morning, and then as soon as that's done, I have to head in to help build a robot, and I'll be there until this evening, tomorrow evening. So it's just not going to work for me, unfortunately.
That's very fair.
Yeah. And then I get to start again on Sunday doing just the robot. But so. I'll take, there's like opportunities and then three slides following them. I can do that part. If you want to do the introduction, or one of you want to do the introduction and then
sounds good.
Go from there.
What was I going to say?
I don't know, but it started with a rockin' guitar chord.
Oh, that wasn't me. Hold on. What was I going to say? Oh, we should probably post a link to the slides in the slides channel, yes?
Yes.
Good call.
Oh, shoot.
Got some accompaniment.
So, what does the Queen walk into Parliament with? Isn't there some music we should have ask them to introduce us with some?
Yeah, we need a theme song.
Yeah. Yeah, don't look at me. I couldn't even convince the Axe people to use the Axe song as their theme song. So
that's a good song, though. We should post a link to that again.
Yep.
Just to make sure, is my audio okay? Is there any echo or anything at all?
It sounds pretty clean to me.
So are the breakout rooms numbered or named in any identifiable way that follows the slide that we have on the?
Bring up the participants and then click on the breakout rooms.
Oh, got it. Okay, perfect.
Tell me if you could do better than that, Bill.
That's pretty perfect.
Got it. Sounds good.
I don't think I can tape in the breakout rooms though, or at least not any room that I'm not in. But I think that'll be fine. We'll just tape the main meeting.
We could probably do individual recordings too if you want. Like I could run OBS.
Yeah, exactly.
Individual recordings with something?
Well, unless we think you're a happy accident for the universe, then yes, you have a purpose and you should be here. I'm not sure. Is there some other place you're supposed to be? This is the RCOS. The RCOS. No, don't go to the breakout rooms yet. Maybe I should kill those before you guys. We were just testing them. Don't go to breakout rooms yet.
Kill them. The breakout rooms, not the students.
Answer that chat question. We have general announcements and updates, kind of looking over what the next few meetings are going to look like, since they're the most important, project pitching and pairing. Once we get through all those, whoever wants to stick around, probably those who are new to RCOS or don't have a lot of development experience, we coordinators and Professor Turner are just splitting up into breakout rooms and going over really brief slides on a bunch of different topics. So if you don't have any experience in those, you can just hop into those rooms after these meetings, after the main slides. So everyone has to be here for the main slides. Then whoever wants to stick around can go to those breakout rooms.
I claim this iceberg in the name of open source. How's that?
Gonna say it looks a little cold where you are, Professor.
I'm down in the basement. This reflects how I actually feel right now.
Oh dear, sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay. My kids got the office and my wife got the dining room, but I've got a decent setup for my. I've got a green screen and a whiteboard and.
Professor Turner has a boat.
Yeah, I wish I. Yeah.
That far surpasses having a living room or dining room.
Yeah, having worked from the dining room in the past during some of this COVID stuff, I can assure you that it is not that great of a place to be. Our dining rooms are not that great.
It's gotten to be a little worse. We just got a puppy 6 days ago, and the puppy has not learned manners yet, and it hasn't learned how not to pee on the floor either yet. So my wife being up in the dining room has to deal with the brunt of that right now. So. I'll tell you what, I'll bring him to the next meeting. I'll have him down.
Good. What do you think, Professor? We have 111. It's a nice number.
It's a good number.
What is that in binary? Someone could do that in their heads.
And thank you, Hunter. We are actually.
Frank, we have one person in the chat who says they cannot join Telescope yet.
I'll write that name down right after.
Okay.
Yes, follow Hunter's advice. But okay, as long as we're recording, I'll get started and I'll hand it off to you, Professor.
Sure.
So welcome back, everyone, to the second RCOS meeting of spring 2022. Hope everyone's doing well and had a good week. So like I said earlier, we just have some general RCOS announcements and updates for today, followed by optional breakout rooms with some interesting sessions hosted by our coordinators. So without further ado, continue with opportunities.
This is Hunter's favorite slide because it keeps me from making mistakes and forgetting to turn on the recording. We are recording. There was a question, there's a question about what Telescope is. The original RCOS website is run by something called Observatory, and in trying to focus in on what's most important, the new one is called Telescope. We're still working on getting all of the functionality up, but it is better than, we got hacked pretty severely by a bunch of advertisements, and Telescope is much cleaner than Observatory right now, so we're using that. Some opportunities I wanted to point out to you guys. One of the advantages of being in RCOS is we get a lot of mails from people like Jason Krusevich or the other people at the Severino Center. They run a bunch of competitions. They do a number of innovative entrepreneurial stuff. This current one is the first competition of this semester out of eShip. It's kind of apropos of RCOS because it's talking about, for those of you who want to start a new project, it's talking about how to start a new project or what project ideas are likely to actually succeed and maybe even make you money. And it deals with finding a problem first before you try to write, before you start working on a solution, know what your problem actually is. And this particular competition is all about finding the problem. And I can tell you that if you can find a good problem that eShip will give you money for, coding up the solution will get you a good grade in RCOS as well, most likely. So this is something to consider. Take a look at it. They have a video, a YouTube video on their site to tell you what they're looking for. With any luck, this QR code takes you there. Consider it. We have RCOS teams enter eShip fairly often, and they fairly often get money for it. There's been thousands of dollars given to students in RCOS for essentially trying to commercialize projects they're doing under RCOS. So it's pretty cool. Second, Professor Krusevich, you guys, if you're on the Discord, you probably saw this go by already. But Professor Krusevich is looking for some funding. People familiar with Python and machine learning. This is not an RCOS project, but it is a URP. Contact Professor Krusevich. He's if we had a Friends of RCOS club, he would be among the Friends of RCOS. He's a good guy. He's got some great ideas. He's led projects here before. Consider taking that one up as well. And then this is like the bounty of all semesters, at least for the start. Dr. Egung Julius also reaches out to us periodically, as do pretty much probably half the CS and ECSC faculty. He's looking for some people with Java and Python experience to work with FitBit Data. So, I, for one, would love to give access to my FitBit Data to a project. It would inspire me to not be a lazy bum sitting on the couch all the time if somebody else were looking at this, particularly if it were, not anonymized, but I bet we're going for anonymized. Anyway, it's an interesting application, needs Android development, and maybe some basic signal processing as kind of the bonus qualifications. But really, if you know Python or Java, and particularly if you've done some Android development, this kind of thing is for you. Open source exercise tracker and leaderboard. We have had people do different varieties of this. I would love to see one come to a point where I could actually download it and use it. We got really close with a tracker for a dumbbell workout, barbells, and I was kind of excited because every one I've used is awful. But they graduated. We can't let you guys graduate. I think it kills our productivity. I think we're going to start putting holds on graduation if you guys don't finish the projects that I like. Just joking. All right, I'm going to turn this back over. Those are the three things that I wanted to go over and explain to you why they were so important. Consider them. You guys, RCOS has a good reputation among the faculty, and I think it would be good to continue that. Cool. Bill, Frank.
Right. Howdy, just got off a phone call. That was weird. But so, mentors. We still need mentors, as we said the last class. They're the lifeblood of RCOS. It's a really fun time. As you can see on the mentor perks, it will also allow you to be cool. We do need some mentors because we have a lot of people this year. So if you haven't yet, definitely check out the RCOS handbook and see some of the perks and responsibilities. You can see what's going on in these slides, which will be posted later. But definitely highly recommend being a mentor if having a leadership role is of any interest to you. Because we went over this last week, I think we're good on that. if we're ready for the next slide. So project pitches, as slide says. If you plan to run a project and want any team members, you're going to be pitching your project over the next 2 meetings. So next week will be project pitches. If you plan to run a project and already have team members, you don't need to pitch. So you're good. I think proposals, we'll be talking about that probably later in the deck.
Yeah.
So more information on project proposals will come later, I believe. Next slide. Oh, there we go. For pitches, if you have a project existing or for the future, you're going to want to make a single slide. All of these specifications, the slide deck should be posted somewhere in the Discord. But so very important things to note on here. You need your name, of course. It's really good if you put what kinds of members you are looking for. I imagine we're going to have a lot of beginners this year just because the class is so big. So anyone who has any space for beginners, definitely put that down. And if you are beginners, don't worry, everyone is very welcoming. And it's not too hard to hop onto a project. You might need some help. The breakout rooms we're going to have later on in this session should also kind of help with some of the beginning, what the heck do I do with RCOS types of feelings you may have. But so if you are pitching a project, make sure you follow this template here. Doesn't have to be exact. Open Circuits is a very well-established project, and that's a very pretty slide. But do your best. And yeah, next slide, please.
Yeah, we have to stop advertising Open Circuits. It had 20-some people last semester.
Ooh.
It was a really well-run it's a really well-run project among the many well-run projects we have here. That was one of them.
Yeah, and I guess because it's like CS and also kind of electrical oriented, then you get the people who are like ECSE also want to do things with signal processing. Like, I get that. I get why that would be popular.
So we do have a lot of good, and they'll all be pitching on Monday, most of our returning ones. So cool.
Yes, so pitches. They need to be submitted pretty soon because next week we're going to be actually presenting them. So existing projects, we need your pitches in by Monday at midnight. I know we don't have class that day, so make a reminder for yourself if you need it, because we will be presenting on Tuesday. New projects, you need to submit yours on Thursday at midnight, so then we can present on Friday. So then people can actually look at all of the projects you've got and see if they want to join. We have this Google form link. Is it in the chat yet?
It will be in a second, and on this Discord.
Oh, perfect. There we go. So lovely. If you plan to run a project and don't want to pitch, don't submit. You kind of have to advertise if you're going to get people. So definitely try and make a slide if you do indeed want to make a project. But those are the deadlines. Yeah, I think we're good here.
Yeah, sorry, I hit the wrong key. That wasn't a hint to move on. Okay, next one.
Yep. All right. So we've got a project lead workshop tomorrow. So if you're interested in running a project in RCOS and you don't know how to get started, definitely come to the project lead workshop tomorrow. We haven't quite figured out a meeting time and location yet, but that'll be announced later tonight. I'm going to do my best to be there, in part because I'm interested in the content and in part because I'll probably be running it. So definitely come hang out if you're interested at all in leading a workshop, even if you're just curious. Maybe you have some ideas you have on the back burner and you're like, maybe it could be a cool RCOS project. It could be a cool RCOS project. So definitely come to the workshop if you're at all thinking about fun new ideas. Is that all we have? Next slide. Yep. next meeting. Oh,
Go ahead.
here we go. So, Saturday is the project lead workshop. Sadly, it's not on a weekday. Sorry about that, guys. But we're all probably still isolating. I don't know. Actually, I can only speak for myself. So, if you're not doing anything, if you're interested, please come to the workshop. Tuesday and Friday will be project pitches. Hopefully, Tuesday will be in person, so then we can do project pairing in person. We can all see each other's faces in real life. We're not going to recognize each other at all because the translation from 2D to 3D is very confusing. But hopefully it is in person. Next slide, please. Now, do we have any questions? That was a lot of information. Yes, Shane, I am right. You're absolutely right.
Awesome. The link to that project pitch form is now in the Spring 2022 channel. And what we'll do now, so again, attendance, we are not taking until probably starting next week, once we start pitching, and attendance really starts to matter when you get projects and such. So, as for what everyone should do right now, if you're not interested in the breakout sessions, actually, Professor, could you go 2 slides down so we can just see which ones there will be?
Yeah, actually, while we're doing that too, let me answer a couple of questions. So there's something that said, how do you determine the quality of
Yes.
a commit? And so that's a little bit subjective, but here's the criteria we're looking at. We're looking at more than just you missed a comment, and you go back and forth, bouncing back and forth between deciding to remove the comment and deciding to the comma, sorry, not comment, comma, and adding the comma because you're deciding which way it looks best. And you throw 3 or 4 commits up there. 1 character change in 1 file, repeatedly done and undone, is a very poor commit. On the other hand, if you take and write that 1 single line of code that is obviously very important, or better yet, throw away 30 lines of code to replace it with 2, or 100 lines of code and replace it with 5, that's a pretty high quality commit. If you touch multiple files, if your commit touches multiple files, yes, that's what I'm touching on. If your commits touch multiple files and propagate through a repository, that tends to be higher quality than something that's very localized. A 30-line code commit, is going to be more impactful than a 30-line documentation commit, because documentation doesn't have to pass things like compilation and correctness running. On the other hand, writing those documents and publishing, documents is really important. So they actually do weigh fairly well. Don't expect to do 2 lines of code and 2 lines of documentation and have them be on par with one another, but maybe 2 lines of code and 75 lines of documentation, and then you're starting to get into the good code commit of the documentation side that would probably start weighing more. So it's a little bit subjective, but the idea is it's substantive. It makes a difference in the project, and it is correct. Correct is good. Anyway, does that kind of help?
Definitely, just to add on to that, I've had some people message me asking kind of similar questions. Your mentors, who will be assigned to you or to your groups soon, they'll be the first people you can go to and say, how am I doing? Is this a good status update? Is this a good contribution? Is this enough? Is this too little? Stuff like that. So don't worry, as long as you go to our meetings and you pay attention to who reaches out to you, there'll never be a scenario where you don't know how you're doing. As long as you are interested and you want to know, you will be able to know.
Yeah, so in answer to Hunter's, why does Telescope need a database for anyway? Back in my day, telescopes were just for staring at the stars. We can only look at Bill doing his dances so many times. right? We have to have something beyond our resident star. All right.
Great.
I don't think it matters too much. We all have slides. The breakout sessions are open. You should be able to join them at will. If not, then I messed something up and I have to fix it. But my thought is we'll go through the slides and then we'll just kind of, if you have questions, we can try to answer them, or we can take
Very
down
free
notes.
form.
Yeah. This isn't meant to be comprehensive. There's a lot of topics here. So ask us what you want to ask us. We'll kind of go through some slides that kind of give you some background, and then we will try to work things out. Okay?
So then onto that, right, to get to these breakout rooms, open up the participants list in WebEx, and you'll see it at the very top. Show all breakout sessions. You can hop into the right one. So
I just accidentally hopped in a little ahead of schedule, so.
I'm gonna have to hop into my room bit. But again, these are not required. All these presentations are like 2-3 slides long. We're just gonna say, hey, these are the things you should be aware of for this topic, and we'll give a bunch of links to stuff. So if you're interested, hop into them, hop around, check out the slides. All the slides are linked, so you can get to any of the slides from that slide I posted in the chat.
Hey guys, how are you?
So again, you can join by looking under the participants tab on WebEx.
I am looking for the correct slides as opposed to just slides.
You'll see it pop up
There we
on the
go.
right. No, Eric, you're not in one yet. Click on participants, and then in the top right, you'll see show all.
I am doing just fine, I think. Let's see what we have here. Let me pop this up.
I'm doing, obviously, I'm not there yet. So, folks, if anyone's still here, again, you don't have to attend these. Feel free to leave. Also, feel free to attend as many as you want, or check out the slides later. I'm gonna go. I don't know if any other coordinators are here, probably not. So, take care. Have a great weekend. Submit your project pitches if you plan on pitching a project next week. Reach out to us either via Discord or email or however you can. Carrier pigeon if you can. I'll be in the languages room.
Okay, give me just another second here to kind of figure out what I'm doing. Fortunately, I didn't dry run this part of it. And let me join my own breakout session. All right. Okay, so I think we should be done with the echo. It should be obvious that Bill created these slides just from the context. So let's get on with the install fest. So, how many of you guys have been in have installed in development environments before. You probably did most of you take CS1 or data structures? I don't know that data structures actually requires you to install an IDE. Certainly, CS1, we encourage you to install Spider, which is not as bad as some, and maybe better than other, and maybe not as good as others. But development environments are environments that let you put things together and do your editing and your code development and your testing all in one big mash. A lot of what you're going to find on RCOS is that if you're doing things like web development, or you're developing in Docker, or you're doing a lot of that kind of low-level, non-trivial networking stuff, it's a lot easier and more stable to do it in Linux than in Windows. So one of the things we're going to recommend, and again, this is if you're working on an existing project, a stable project, you'll be able to do this. They'll have installation instructions. That's one of the things that we encourage projects to put together is onboarding material, including how to get your environment set up, how to what the norms are for the community, any special things like how you're supposed to do a pull request, etc. But they'll also have they'll have things like their installation guide. If you're trying to go from scratch and you want to avoid some of the things that you'll run into with Windows, and by the way, sorry, I just got a pop-up error message that I had to read. And also kind of deal with an open source operating system like Linux. Well, if you want to do that, it's probably best to install something like WSL, assuming you have a Windows machine. There are a number of options. WSL is a port of Linux that runs natively on Windows. If you're going to install this, there are some really easy installations. I use this in the open source course. It works on Windows, any modern Windows machine, Windows 10, 2004 and higher. The new WSL2, and you do want to install WSL2, allows you to do most everything that you can do in Linux from an Ubuntu window. So it's pretty simple. I haven't had a lot of problems with this. We install it for, like I said, they install this for data structures. We install it for operating open source software. It allows you to have your Windows machine running, accessing it at the same time, and while you're doing that, you can also go in and start an Ubuntu terminal and actually access and work as if you were in a Linux environment with all the Linux tools for doing networking and getting your stuff actually working. I'm not going to go into the installation instructions. They're here. They're very well done. There are other options. So, for example, if you want to go in, sorry, we got through this. Other ways of working with, using Linux in a Windows environment. You can also use a virtual machine. A virtual machine runs on another layer, and it can either be a Docker, where you're working, largely at a container level, or it could be something like Oracle's VirtualBox, which has a lot more overhead. Both of those have drawbacks. Neither one of them run directly on the hardware, and in truth, if you're going to be running Docker, you're probably going to need to install WSL2 anyway to get any real benefit out of having Docker. So there are other options. Dual booting is an option. Booting from a USB stick is an option. Right now, the most reliable and least stress-free that I have available, the thing that I'm actually using on my Windows box, is the WSL2. It's what I'm going to recommend for you if you're getting into that environment. The cool thing about Linux over something like Windows is when you get Linux, you get a C++ compiler, you get a Python install, right? All of that are native tools that are available right directly in your installation, as opposed to separate tools that you have to download and figure out how to run. You do sometimes have to install them, but it's not exactly the same as installing something on Windows. Any questions? Trying to get to the chat. So Joseph asks a very good question. Do I recommend VMbox or WSL? In order of preference, I would say WSL1 is my least favorite. VMbox is my second least favorite. Docker would be my third least favorite, or second favorite. And then WSL2 is actually the one that I find the best right now. VMbox, if you're doing anything non-trivial, takes an enormous amount of resources for your machine. I've never successfully, can't say I've never successfully run. I've run a lot of things on VMbox, and I just get so irritated with the amount of slowdown I exhibited by the computer that it doesn't really make sense to me. On the other hand, if you want, you can, if you have a cheap old, or let's just say old laptop, installing a boot of Linux on it, Linux is much lighter than Windows. It will run much better than Windows on any, on older hardware. So, if you want to avoid WSL and you have, your old beater laptop, that's what I did. I have a Linux box sitting about 6 feet from me. Just on an old piece of hardware that was no longer able to run Windows, but it runs Linux just fine. Yeah, OPSIS, they advise. How long ago did you take OPSIS, Joseph? This semester? Really? Well, OPSIS gets into a lot more of the networking stuff than, I guess when I taught it, I recommended against WSL2. The stuff you're going to be doing here, WSL2 should probably be good. If WSL isn't good, I would not do VMbox. I would try to find another solution entirely. I am not a big fan of VMbox. Docker certainly works for a lot of things, but if you have to have direct access to the hardware, that doesn't work either. At that point, I think you need to kind of think about a Linux install. Okay. Then again, if Goldschmidt tells you to use VMbox, when I taught operating systems, I did it off my laptop, my Linux laptop. So I didn't have the patience for VMbox. All right. So one of the things, and Bill kind of skewed. He doesn't have, when he's saying IDEs, and you can tell by the dancing, that is signature Bill. So I wouldn't have even looked for Snoop Dogg dancing with a rainbow frog. I just wouldn't have even occurred to me. Anyway, development environments come in a lot of flavors. I think Atom and Sublime are development environments that are relatively self-contained. Emacs is relatively self-contained from the standpoint that if you're using C, C++, a lot of languages, you can actually compile and run directly from within Emacs. Vim is not quite that. Vim and Nano are both primarily editors. You can extend them, but Vim is my editor of choice, and the thought of extending it to be more like Emacs just is not something that I would entertain. But the cool thing about if you do go down a Linux route is all of these things. Vim comes, pretty much Vim and Nano and come pretty much standard. I think Emacs is relatively standard, although it's been a year since I used to do all my text editing in Emacs and everything else in Vim, and over the years. I've just gotten rid of Emacs completely. The idea you want to do is you want to find an editor that you're comfortable with. It's always good to know Nano or Vim, just because any Linux install is going to have them available. So you can always do something. If you need to do something to get the rest of the systems there, you can do them from Nano or Vim. So make sure you know one of those. But after that, it's the sky is pretty much the limit. I will say that do we have visual? Do they talk about visual? Yeah. Okay. So these are primarily text editors. Like I said, Emacs and I think Atom in particular allow you to do a little bit more than that. That's generally what I consider an IDE. I have my compiler that I call from the command line. I have my editor that I call from the command line, and I have a GDB for debugging that I call from the command line. But this isn't necessarily what you're going to think of as an IDE. It is a component of an IDE that's primarily for files. More likely you're going to want to do something like Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code is now open. I'm not sure it's completely open source from the standpoint. I don't know that the code is available, but it is freely available from Microsoft. So you can always get that. It allows you to do the same types of operations or use the same workflows on Windows as you would use on Linux, or on Linux as you would use on Windows. Again, I'm not a big fan of Visual Studio Code IDE just because it's really heavyweight, and my fingers know Vim better than they know Visual Studios, but it's a really good option. As is Eclipse. I've used both. Having said that, I prefer a text editor and the command line. I've used both of these extensively at different parts and for different things. In fact, the robot team the first robotics team that I mentor, just switched from Eclipse to Visual Studio's Code, I think last year. All right. So I think the whole purpose of this little set of slides was just kind of to kind of show you some of the things that are available, talk about some of the points. If your project has one of these things, they will help you get it set up. They had better have a getting started guide. We highly recommend that for any project looking to onboard new students, and that should help you set up the things. The one thing you want to be sure of is that you're kind of working in the same environment as the rest of your team. I'm going to throw out one more thing that's not in Bill's slides. One of the things you'll find is that on some of the more complex projects, your major hurdle is going to be getting Docker set up, because the more complex projects start working on the principle of Dockerizing everything so that everybody has the same environment and the same IDE and everything works consistently for everybody. Otherwise, we spend 2 or 3 weeks installing all of these tools and getting you up to speed, and you lose 2 weeks out of the semester without even being able to do anything. So those are things to look for. If you're starting up a project, I wouldn't start Dockerizing right away. I would start by picking something here that kind of makes sense. If you're going to be doing a lot of networking, you probably want to look at a Linux system. Pick either an editor and some compilation tools, or pick something like Visual Studios that will allow you to do an in-place IDE or Eclipse, and then just start from there and kind of build up and see where you need to go to. Any other questions? Any? Like I said, this is not an exhaustive set of things. It's just some talking points to think about. Okay, I think I'm gonna kind of hang out here in case you have questions, but be a good time if you want to go out and grab another session. That would be great. Otherwise, we will see you guys on Tuesday when we begin pitching projects.
any wacky people here. Issue and pull request templates, those are cool too. That's just how to ask for to merge new code into the main branch. A lot of very well-established repositories will have these. So then the people who are reviewing them, because they have to review so many a day, can see fully what you're doing. So definitely, if you're working with an established project, you'll run into that. It's just like a fill-in-the-blank type of form, easy enough to do yourself. I don't know how to implement it, but hello? Is that a question?
Sorry, I forgot to mute myself.
Oh. So now we're at the questions bit. I've answered some questions, but if we have more, ask away. Git is weird, so even if you don't have them now and you think of them later, drop them in the chat. There's definitely a channel in Discord. I think it's called Help Desk, and it's about asking for help for things. Yep. So drop any questions you might have in the future in Help Desk. If you have any right now, feel free to unmute yourself or drop it in the chat. Because Git is weird, GitHub is weird, but you got this, and there are lots of people who know what's going on, so feel free to ask for help if you need it. Can you elaborate more on the documentation part? The documentation part. Where was that? Was that in... Oh, I think let's cycle back. Were you talking about... Oh, the README? The README. Have you guys taken data structures yet? Because that's where you would usually put, so yes. You remember how you kind of had to write some things sometimes in the README? Because it's just like that. It's also definitely a guide for users as well as other people who will be on your project. So this is really the beginning of the documentation. There are some projects that have very extensive documentation, like RCOS. And so, oh no, data structures PTSD. And Submiti actually as well has a very robust wiki of documentation. And wiki is something, yeah, over here. If you click on that, that'll tell you more about that. But README is just an overview of what the project is. Perhaps it also has some of the code of conduct in it for developers, depending on how large or small the project is. You really don't need to learn Markdown. At least, I guess I've used Markdown and I kind of know it now because I've used it, but it's really straightforward. It's just funky text. So don't let any of that worry you. But so does that answer your question about the README? It's just an overview of your project, perhaps an overview for developers and for users.
So Alice,
Professor Turner, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, just can you head to GitHub and grab something from RCOS? Maybe that shows it. Maybe unfortunately, the project's links don't work, do they? Still. Let me see if I
What
can post.
can you guys see here? I'll stop sharing just to. Stop sharing. I'll pull it up. I might just pull up the. Actually, you know what? I have UNC bookmarked, so I'll share that.
There you go. Yeah.
Right. So, here we have UNC. It's a project by good old Professor Turner. It's a repository to show how to create a repository. We like that. But so that's our README. It's a short README because it's a small project. Says exactly what it does. It is a guide for both developers and users, I guess. We have these contribution guidelines, so that's nice. We have a code of conduct here. Kind of robust document. And now we have our source code. Oh, it has things in it. That's fun. So this is GitHub. If you've never seen it before, welcome to GitHub. So as you can see, it does have a lot of these terms that we were talking about earlier. Here you can make a pull request, and if you want to make one, it'll basically pull up a form that says, here's the master branch. It's called main and master depending on your update for the computer, or I guess they haven't updated the website, but on my computer when I'm using Git, in the command line it says main because Git was like, yo, how about we not reference slavery? They did that very recently. It was, I thought I was losing my mind for a moment, but you're not losing your mind. They just changed the verbiage a little bit, but they mean the same thing. So any branches that you're on that you want to merge into the main or master branch, so the compare will be whichever one you want to push in. The base will be whichever one exists already that you want to modify. So whichever one you want to merge in, you'll just go down into this branches tab and choose it. I'm not going to make a pull request because I don't think I need to change Unk. I think she's perfect the way she is. So let's go back. We've got issues. Oh, get started issue. You can also make issues within GitHub. Oh, I'm not signed in, so I can't. But that's basically, if you find a bug in any open source repository, you can actually go in here and report it. Oh, you guys want to see some MIDI? Wait, actually, you know what? I will open up the floor.
Hi. Hi, what's up? Hello?
So any questions about that? Is that clear? I'll take silence as a yes. That was so clear. So thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. So again, I'll stick around for the longer time. If there's any questions, you've got group coordinators and a faculty advisor. Take care. See ya. I see a comment. See you, Matthew. See you, Jamari. I'm trying to install Node modules with npm install. Take care. It's hanging on a certain computer. We tested on another computer and there have been no issues. I'm wondering why this is the case. See you, folks. So, what that happens to me all the time with Node. So my questions would be, what type of computer are you on? Are you on Windows? Are you on Linux? Are you on Mac? Windows 10. And just on Windows, like you're doing this in like the command prompt or the PowerShell? Or do you have WSL? Okay. Do you know if you have WSL 1 or 2? I guess the better question is, okay, 2. Off the top of my head, because there could be a million reasons, off the top of my head, WSL 2 works really, really well when the project you're in, like the folder that your project is in, is not in your Windows file system, but it's in the Linux file system. So where's your project folder? Is it like in somewhere in your Windows file system, like in your documents folder? Or is it somewhere in your Linux system? And the way you can tell that right, is like, actually that right here, actually, Linux system. Okay. Oops. Still on Node. So WSL2 on Linux. They're both installed. Okay. Those are the only things that jump to mind immediately. Because when you're on the Windows file system, it's just so much slower. And npm install usually is pulling in thousands upon thousands of text files. I don't know off the top of my head, but what I could do, I can look into it and are you on the Discord server? Then I'll look into it because I've found a bunch of resources on like similar things in the past, and I can pull them back up. I can send them your way. Hopefully, I work. Yeah, that's one of the annoying things about Node, dealing with Node modules, npm issues. Gotcha. Yeah, so I'll send you those resources and let me know. Yeah, definitely. If you use Node version manager, you can easily go back. But yeah, if not, you can uninstall Node, install an older version. Maybe if you're on the current version, you can switch to the long-term support version instead. Test that out. Make sure npm itself is up to date. Things like that. But yeah. Problem. Good luck. Tip. And with that,
There we go. Okay, Professor, I think it worked pretty well.
I think so. Let's see.
There are a lot of new people in this room, at least. I don't know if I assume most of the people who went to the breakout rooms were newish, or totally new, but
Yeah.
a handful of total people talking with us. This one at least, which is great.
Yeah, it seemed like we had a lot of more. We had more people stick around than I expected, so that was good.
Definitely. I wonder how people are hearing. Okay.
All right,
Sounds good.
Aiden, are you here? Yeah, I think they just left themselves in, and so I'm going to shut down.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
In that case, have a good night, Professor. Take
All
care.
right. We'll see you guys Tuesday, I guess.
Yes. See you then.
Actually, what I'll do is I'll kill all breakout sessions. Hey, Aiden, it's just you and me if you're still here.